Here we go.
Good morning, good afternoon, and welcome to Movie Night here on Random Trek. Coming to you live from the year 1985, or is it 1955? I don't know which, because today we are taking a look at a classic that is celebrating its 40th anniversary this year. It's Back to the Future, the Robert Zemeckis classic. And joined as always, my first officer, Brennan, the mystical Mark. Brennan, this is a fun one for us.
Yes, and apparently Ronald Reagan is president, and he's just an actor.
Really? And who's the first lady? Jane Wyman?
Yeah, and the
That's a
vice
history
president is
joke.
Jerry Lewis.
There's a history joke there, people. Just
Yeah,
say.
and the vice president is Jerry Lewis, apparently. So,
Yes. But we're joined by two very, very special guests. One that we have had on before, and one we haven't. So joining us again, all the way across the country, is another child of the 80s. It's Kayleigh. Hi, Kayleigh.
Hello. Thanks for having me again, guys.
Oh, it's great. You asked us at the very beginning of the year to do this.
I asked you to be on a podcast, and you're like, Back to the Future. I was like, sure, that's a movie from my childhood. We can talk about that.
oh, yes.
Yes, we're looking forward to this. But I have a very special guest. Okay, I've been wanting to do this for some time now, and it finally worked. Um, the main plot of this came from an idea of, I believe it was Bob Gale looking back at his parents' yearbook and going, "What were my parents like back then?" And in the movie, it's about a 30-year difference between Marty and his parents when they were roughly his age. Well, my wife and I are also in our 40s, and I also have a child that is Marty McFly's age. So I thought, who better to come in and talk about this movie than someone who could actually ask that question about her own parents? It's the counselor's daughter, my daughter. It's Kira. Hi, Kira.
Hi. Do I need to
Hi.
ask that question? You tell me all about it.
She's feisty. She is very feisty. But Kira, this is not the first time you've seen it. I know that. This is like
No,
second, yeah,
this is the second time I've seen it.
second time you've seen it. Um, what is interesting to you about this film?
It it's like a time capsule, like of the like when you think of 80s movies, I think this is like one of the first 80s movies you think of.
It's true. That's true. What do you think of the idea, though, of imagining or being able to see what your parents were like when you were in school? Like, what is that a thought for you?
I don't think about it a whole lot because my mom has a bunch of photos, so like if I want to see it, I can. So I don't have to think about it too much. I ask.
Well, we
But I,
could look through, but it's
yeah.
experiencing it. Imagine
Oh yeah.
being Marty. It's crazy, crazy thought. I can only imagine it. But
Trying to imagine you in high school, Chris, and I just can't.
I wouldn't want that on anybody. No. We don't
Yeah.
want that.
Yeah. Less of a Marty, more of a George.
They would,
Oh.
yeah, they would not have given me a spaceship. Would not have. They would not have. Starfleet would have been like, nope.
Yes, Darth Vader from the planet Vulcan wouldn't have come to you. Nope.
She's right though. I am far more George than I am Marty. But
Yes.
I
Yeah.
turn the con over to Commander Brennan.
Yes. Yes. This is celebrating its 40th anniversary. This was released on July 3rd, 1985, so a few years before, almost 3 months exactly before I was born. Um, Definitely, as Kira said, this is one of the quintessential 80s movies. And a child of the 80s like me, like Chris, like Kayleigh, this is a film that is absolutely a part of our childhoods and a part of growing up in that generation. This film, directed, of course, by Robert Zemeckis, produced by Steven Spielberg, Well, this film has a very Spielberg feeling to it, I think. Even though it's not directed by him, it definitely has that feel.
It was Amblin, so I'm
Yeah,
sure there was a little talk and discussion with him.
yeah,
I'm
and
sure.
Spielberg, ruled the '80s. Let's be clear, that was
Mhm.
his decade.
Yeah.
But yes, we come to Back to the Future, which is a classic, and definitely a film that deals with time travel. Arguably the most famous time travel movie ever made. So let's get into it. So we'll start with, as we do, breaking it down into its components. So let's start with the story here, which is that when young Marty McFly more or less accidentally finds himself traveling back to 1955, things get complicated. And instead of his mother falling in love with his father, she falls in love with him. And he has to fix that, or else he will be erased from existence. And with the help of the eccentric Doc Brown, they must figure out how to deal with this and send him back to the future. It's a very interesting idea of the film, of this idea of going back in time and then inadvertently messing up what's supposed to happen and needing to correct it before it completely changes the timeline. Well, we'll start with you, Kira. Kira, what did you think of the overall idea of this film?
I think it's like it sets the baseline for a lot of time travel movies to come. I think it's I think it's really good. I think it's like one of those like it's one of like the classics. It's like when you think of it, like it's like the time travel movie. And I think it's popular for a reason. I really like the story. Um it has its up, it has its downs. I like it.
Yes, Kayleigh, your thoughts on the overall premise of this film?
Well, I think that the story is a pretty classic setup. A lot of people, a lot of times this movie gets touted as being like the perfect movie. Like you hear that a lot. It's so because of that, I think the story has a lot to do with it. It's easy to follow, even though it is time travel. Um, Within the story, you will have things that happen, the cause and effect is very easy to follow. I think sometimes time travel can become convoluted, but to Kira's point, like this is a very like cookie cutter kind of version of a time travel movie, and it's time travel done right, in my opinion.
And it's interesting you mentioned because I think if you look at the sort of logic of the film, if you think about the time travel logic too much, it doesn't make sense. But that's sort of not the point of this film. The point of this film is to be very everything comes back around. There's a cause and effect. What they call the plant and the payoff.
Mm-hmm.
You plant an idea and it pays off. Captain Ingle, your thoughts on the overall story of this film?
Yeah, I mean, this story is often replicated but never duplicated.
Hmm.
It, we have seen time travel movies ad nauseum all the time. In fact, this movie is referenced in time travel movies. Hot Tub Time Machine, Avengers, yeah,
Yeah.
Endgame. It's not all like Back to the Future. This is kind of the standard for what you expect with going into the past. Whether it's accurate or whether there's physics to it, no one really knows. But it's the standard that we accept and that we live by. You see a DeLorean now, You want to get in that sucker and go 88 miles an hour.
Yes, and 1.21 gigawatts.
Yes, 121 gigawatts.
Even though
Getting,
it probably should be pronounced gigawatts, but
yeah, they just didn't know any better at the time. Scientists, they were not. But it's fun, it's enjoyable. Is it creepy? Yes.
yeah.
Is it creepy? Absolutely. Does this movie have its flaws? I think it does. But do I still go back and watch this movie and its sequels over and over and over and over again? Do I watch the animated series? Yes. Yes, I do, because this is the standard. This is what everything is set by. Um, and it's great that it is able to stand the part of the pun, the test of time.
You mentioned the creepiness. I mean, yes, going back in time and your mother fell in love with you
Mm-hmm.
is creepy. I mean, it just is. And but that's part of I think the fun of it is just trying to navigate that ridiculous situation.
Yeah, and I do think, and we'll talk about Marty, but I think Marty handles it well.
He
At
does, yeah.
no point is there a sense of attraction. And actually this was teased a little bit in Futurama with the character Fry. Fry goes back in time to the time of his grandparents. And there's this big old joke that Fry might be his own grandpa. Well, spoiler alert, he becomes his own grandpa,
So
which,
basically, it's a Dr.
yeah,
Bashir in Trials and Tribulations.
yes, that question. Um,
Yes.
but the point is that this story works. And again, it's replicated, but I don't think it's ever been duplicated. We
Yeah.
try to redo it, we try to take elements and we enjoy it and we honor it and we homage it. But I've never seen another movie a time travel movie, be as successful as this one.
Yeah, definitely. I think that the interesting thing about it is, yeah, as we said at the top of the show, what would it be like to meet your parents when they were your age?
Mm-hmm.
Like if I were a teenager, if I were 17 years old like Marty, what would it be like to go back to the 70s and meet my parents when they were that age? And I think that we would have gotten along. I think my dad and I share a lot of the same interests, so certainly would have enjoyed being nerds, during that time. And plus, that would have been back in the days when being a nerd was not a cool thing to be.
Mm-hmm.
And then, my mom, I think we would have gotten along. It would have been rather interesting to see that. And I think a lot of people, it's the age-old question. Were my parents ever teenagers? And because of the way our society operates, how quickly we advance, each generation that comes along keeps saying, I don't think my parents understand me. And then it'd be interesting to go back and see what they were like and go, well, maybe they do understand. Um, but yes, as an idea, this is the standard by which time travel films are judged. And so let's get into really the heart of this film, which is the characters. This is, I think, this cast is one of the most, I think, iconic in modern film history. Marty and Doc Brown are some of the most iconic characters. And even down to shows like Rick and Morty that are referencing this dynamic. Well, let's start with our very young Michael J. Fox, who at this time was a familiar face on some sitcoms, but had never really been in a major film like this, playing a lead role. But Kayleigh, we'll start with you. What do you think of well, one of Michael J. Fox's performance, but two, the journey that this character goes on?
Yeah, I think he's perfectly cast. I mean, I know that you know, famously, this movie started with the casting of Eric Stoltz in the
Yes.
role, and so and I love Eric Stoltz in a lot of things, but the fact that they were recast this is the best decision they ever made, in my opinion. It's the best example of a recast because while it's so different from like at that point, I think what he was known for is Alex P. Keaton and like that role on Family Ties. But this particular one, even though he's older and playing this teenager, you still believe him. He's got that boyish charm. He still never really grew up. But Michael J. Fox has that young face. He could just play young and he does such a good job of playing that like irresponsible slacker teenager at the beginning. And it definitely reads like, even though they didn't see him, even though you don't see them all in Hill Valley, it reads like that like mid-80s slacker like teenage boy who probably would just like, cut school and hang out and like, ride a skateboard outside of a mall somewhere. And but his his arc is the realization of seeing like what life was like for his parents back in the 50s and also realizing um his respect for like Doc Brown and his appreciation and relationship with him, and that does help him grow throughout the movie. So you do see him have a different appreciation at the end, but also just like you see them have a better connection to the other characters at the end as well. And so, like I said, I really do. He plays that really well. But like I said, he was, in my opinion, he's the best part of that movie always for me. I always appreciate his performances in this one and well as the other two as the sequels too. So
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right about the recasting of Eric Stoltz. I think that Eric Stoltz, is a good actor, but might have been a bit too serious in the role. And I think that you need someone who has that boyish charm, and certainly Michael J. Fox has that. Also, that sense of bewilderment of like it's almost like he's being thrown into the deep end of the pool without knowing how to swim, and he's got to figure it out. And he runs into this weird situation with his mom, and he has no idea how to handle it. Which is great. Chris, your thoughts on Marty McFly and Michael J. Fox here?
So much fun. And he was the first choice. But originally the studios couldn't get him because of his obligations to
Yeah.
Family Ties.
Mm-hmm.
So they went with Stoltz and, I feel bad for him. I really do, because he starts working, he's doing his best, and then one day they're just like, man, it ain't working. We got to do something. And they get rid of him, and those are the bites in Hollywood. That is what it is. That being said, I can't imagine anyone other than Michael J. Fox. This was Michael J. Fox's era between Family Ties and the many movies that he was doing. I think he
Teen
had like
Wolf.
Teen Wolf,
Teen
Teen Wolf.
Wolf.
Now, one of my personal favorites, The Secret of My Success. I love
Oh,
that movie.
yes. There you
Adore it.
go.
Great comedy. He was on a roll. He only was doing the series at this point, so he wasn't quite hitting that role yet. He was getting there and was popular in the TV scene, but this movie, I think, really solidified his movie star status in the 80s. And he's worth every penny. I love his sense of encompassing what it means to be a teenager in the 1980s. It's all about love and rock and roll and school, really. Oh, I don't need to be in school, but I got to get there. He's just your average teen. He's not very smart. He's not, but he is clever. He is clever and he pays attention because there are things that are really important, I think, when he goes back in time, remembering and realizing things as he acclimates and figures it out, that he's in survival mode. This character is just so wonderful, so great. I love the chase sequence with Marty in the square with Biff.
Oh, yes.
That
Which
chase
gets repeated a few times.
again, replicated, never duplicated, which I
Yes.
love, because they redo it a couple times. But that being said, um, he's just a fabulous character, and I buy him as a teenager, even though at that point he definitely was not a teenager. It was his
Yeah.
first in the industry. It works. This is great. It's fun. And Michael J. Fox is just fabulous at this point, you know, and it's so sad that he is where he is right now with his Parkinson's and that we're never going to get more Michael J. Fox. Um, you know, that's it's very sad. But we get to look back at roles like this that made him an iconic 80s star.
Yeah, and you're right about him being sort of the iconic 80s teenager here.
Mhm. I mean,
So
he's
Kira,
yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
so jump to Kira though. Kira, your thoughts on this character and the actor?
So I actually am distinctly bad at recognizing actors in movies. I've never watched, I think, a movie from before my time and then had to like recognize the actor and be like, he's a good actor. I always just see them as their characters, which means that they're good at their job.
Mm-hmm.
But I I love this character so much because I love when they show teens as like I love when they show teens as like the slacker character and they're kind of low key and hanging around, and then they force them into situations where they have to show a lot of responsibility, and then they do, because a lot of times teens are like that. They want to have fun and they want to like sit back and hang out with their friends, and oh my gosh, we do have to go to school. And then there are going to be situations in our everyday life where we're stuck and we have to make responsible adult decisions because we're getting to that age. And I genuinely love every single characterization where like a character has to do that, and I think he's a prime example of that.
Yeah, very well. Very well said. I mean, it's the idea of, yeah, I mean, as teenagers, I remember, I only liked a few of my classes. I didn't like some of my classes, and not that I was a slacker, but I'd rather be hanging out with my friends and not doing school. And then I do remember those moments where I had to actually step up and be responsible. In many ways, I found those moments more rewarding than just wanting to hang out with my friends. It's actually the rewarding part getting to actually be, as they say now, adulting.
Hmm.
Um, Marty certainly has to do that here, and I think Michael J. Fox, I mean, you're right. I don't think there's another actor who could have pulled this off the way he did. Um, now, one of the things I really like about the way this film is structured is this film isn't about how Doc and Marty met each other. They already know each other by the time the movie starts. So we can just go straight for the adventure. And of course, this brings us to Christopher Lloyd in what has become the most iconic role in his entire career. Before this, he was famous for the sitcom Taxi as the insane Reverend Jim Ignatowski. But this role as Duck Emmett Brown is the most iconic role I think he's ever done. And, thankfully, most of the cast is still with us, including Christopher Lloyd. Uh, and this character is, it's so funny. I was talking to my friend the other day, and he said when he saw this movie, and I'm sure this is true for a lot of us who grew up on this movie, we just assumed that he was already really old. But turns out he wasn't actually that old when he played this role. Um, the makeup to make him look older, and then you go back to the 50s, he looks a little bit younger. But in many ways, he is kind of the modern day stereotypical mad scientist. He is the eccentric scientist who's always kind of winding up in trouble. And in this case, of course, stealing plutonium from terrorists, bad idea. And the whole arc of going back in time, seeing him back in the past.
Mhm.
And Marty so desperately wants to tell him what's going to happen to him in the future. But Doc is insistent, don't tell me. I don't want to know what's going to happen. And then, of course, we see that he was willing to sort of take a leap of faith. But Chris, we'll start with you. The iconic role of Doc Emmett Brown, Christopher Lloyd, and the journey this character goes on.
This is the role that I love Christopher Lloyd for.
Mm-hmm.
What's kind of funny is that Christopher Lloyd is the perfect age at the time to do this. So in 1985, when this movie came out, Christopher Lloyd would have been in his late 40s. When 1955 happened, he actually was in high school as a sophomore, I think, like a freshman or sophomore. So when they go back to 1955, like, he is able to really encapsulate that. There's a certain naivety, there's a certain way that he handles himself that is very different from his 30-year future counterpart. And I really like that he's able to kind of get into that and understand that because he lived that, because he was a high school student in 1955. He talked about in interviews how life was very American graffiti. Although he didn't grow up in California, he grew up in Connecticut, which it is a little different. It is a little different. Winters are very cold in Connecticut. This is not Los Angeles or Modesto. But that being said, he still recognized those elements and was able to play into it. And, to be so lovable, and yet everyone in that movie, except for Marty, says Doc is wrong. Doc is bad for you. Doc is crazy. Why are you hanging out with him? He never once gives into that. He also never sticks up for Doc, but he also never leaves his side.
Yeah.
And that's a mentor. And I am very curious as to where that mentorship began with them, why they, that is a fascinating thing I would love to learn more about. But this character is just fun and entertaining, and yes, a little mad and a little crazy, and, part Einstein, part Pee Wee Herman.
Nice.
You know what? That opening sequence with the Rube Goldberg machine for the dog food.
Mm-hmm.
That's still Pee Wee Herman to me, which had come out before. But I enjoy this. He's fun. And, when he gets to play it straight, he gets to play it straight. And yet he gets plenty of good physical comedy moments, especially in the third act, to show off his chops. Because Christopher Lloyd, if anything, is a comedian. Yes, he's a comedy actor. He is very funny. But when he has to be serious, he is. Like when Marty tries to give him the note to warn him. Mm-hmm. He takes that very serious. No, my life is not important compared to the grand scheme of space-time and the universe. No, leave it alone, Marty. We've got something to do. Get your head in the game. I like that he's so very serious. And yet, I also love, the ending, the classic line, roads, where we're going, we don't need roads. And yes, the confidence that he exudes in that. This is such a good performance from him. And this is coming off of Taxi. Taxi being the one thing that he had year before this. He did Cuckoo's Nest.
Yes, in 1975, yes.
Yeah, I would say a small to medium role in Cuckoo's Nest.
Yeah.
Then Search for Spock. We all know how I feel about Krug and Search for Spock.
Oh, yes.
And then my daughter's all-time favorite film he did the same year, Clue.
Oh, yes, we love Clue. We
do.
So,
up to this point, this guy understands comedy. He really, 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 really does. And he just knows how to be there. And I enjoy it. I enjoy it so much. And he doesn't stop because he moves on to do other iconic characters that I will never forget. Judge Doom, Uncle Fester, the bad guy in Dennis the Menace. I can't remember his name.
Oh, yes.
I love him in that. Comedy and him work. He is Doc Brown. Doc Brown is him I enjoy it. Go to Universal Studios, 10-1 odds, you'll see Doc Brown around wandering somewhere. That's because of this man.
Yes. You're right about him being lovable. Even though he's eccentric, even though he's often causing all kinds of chaos, he is a lovable character. And also, you mentioned the physical comedy. Now, we are living in what I like to call the meme generation. And the amount of memes based on facial expressions of him from this movie is amazing. He's got some of the best physical responses to things.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, he gets to say the title of the movie to the camera.
Yep.
Which is a fun little moment. Kara, your thoughts on Doc Brown and Christopher Lloyd?
So once again, I'm also really bad with actors. So I wasn't aware that he was in Clue because I have bad facial recognition.
Mm.
But I think it's good because that means that I wasn't able to recognize him because he's just good at his roles. I think, like as we've said before, this movie just is a blueprint, and he's a blueprint for future mad scientist characters. And a lot of them I grew up with, and I like mad scientist characters, and it's nice to see mad scientist characters that aren't on the bad side. Because you see a lot of them, they're on the evil side, and then you get ones that are on the good side, and it's nice to watch. I think he's a really good mentor character. He's really good at like being there for Marty to ground him when he doesn't know what to do. Because there's always going to be times in like teens' lives when they just can't make a rash decision because it's difficult. It's going to be difficult. And he's a really good adult figure despite being called crazy and absolutely bonkers by literally everybody else in that town, which I think is hilarious. No, he's good at being there for Marty. And also I love his nonsense science. I don't think I've ever seen a movie where I think that a science or a magic system absolutely makes sense, and it just makes the movie better. Um, I I found it absolutely fun. Like I think I cackled out loud when he looked directly into frame, eyes wide, and goes, "Back to the Future." I think that's the most I've laughed in like years. That was so insanely funny. He's incredibly comedic, and this was a great character.
He also inspires, I forgot to mention, because I think you would appreciate this, Kara, one of the greatest creations of the 21st century, Rick and Morty.
I
Yes.
saw this. No, you
Yes.
reminded me that I was doing this, and I was at my friend's house rewatching Rick and Morty, and I was like, wow, this is really like Back to the Future. And then I connected those dots.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
This is how iconic this character has become. And you mentioned the idea of mad scientist. Now, one thing I noticed with the hairdo that Doc Brown has is reminiscent of the 1920s film Metropolis and the mad scientist Dr. Rotving. Now, Rotving is not a good character. He's kind of the opposite of Dr. Brown. The hair just reminded me of that. I think culturally we have a sense of a mad scientist. These are the crazy today. A crazy head of hair. That's like just part of being a mad scientist. Give your thoughts on this character.
I'll be quick because I will say this. There are two characters for me that are some of the perfect character introductions of all times. One of them being Captain Jack Sparrow in Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yes.
Prince of Black Pearl. The other one, Doc Brown. Specifically because you learn so much about Doc Brown before you even meet him. The opening of this movie is an introduction to Doc Brown without ever meeting him. And so what's so crazy is you realize this man lives in a garage in 1985. And it's like, why is this crazy man living in a garage? And it's like, because he burnt his house down. He burnt his house down. That's why he's living in a garage. I mean, this man had a mansion that gets burned down. And just like, and then so it's just like all these little parts that you have to pay attention to. So then, like, by the time you meet him, you're like, oh, yeah, I get it. That's Doc Brown. So like to me, it's like one of the perfect, like, yes, it's a caricature, but you love him because Christopher Lloyd is like such a amazing comedic actor, like we've all been saying. His timing's impeccable, just the way he is. It's just like it's lightning in a bottle. It's so good. It's so good. That's all I can
Right.
say.
The introduction. I mean, here's the truck. It opens up. There's all this mist. The DeLorean backs out of the mist like the creature coming out of the swamp. Doc Brown gets out. I mean, it is iconic, as iconic
Mhm.
can be. And this character continues to resonate with us even to this day with things like Rick and Morty. Um, now, I think that there's a lot that we can say about Marty's parents, but I think that we want to probably just for the sake of time deal with them both together in discussion. Obviously, we have Kristen Glover as George McFly, the nerdy, awkward guy who kind of allows himself to be dominated by death. And then you have Leah Thompson as Lorraine Baines. And we get to see an interesting evolution of these characters because we first meet them and we see how they are as this couple has been married for many years. And then go back in time to what they were like as high schoolers. And then they come forward to the future and see that their lives have changed. For the better. And it's interesting that in the case of like Lorraine, all the stories she tells about how she was as a teenager, well, it turns out none of those are true. Um, which is really funny. And George seems to have really not changed in all those years. And so dealing with these two characters and this interesting situation of trying to set them up as a couple to make sure the history plays out the way it's supposed to play. Kira, we'll start with you.
I
The
think,
whole thing with the actors and the journeys that these characters go on.
yeah. I really like the comparison in characters from the beginning of the movie. Like you said with the dinner at the night, I really like how we see those characters and those characters interact, and we can see that their marriage isn't great. And we can see how they interact with each other and how they are like the worst versions of themselves at that time. And then you see all of how they get together with Marty and with Marty's help. And then at the end of the movie, they're so in love with each other. They're their best versions of themselves. They're pursuing their dreams. And I think it's great that we get to see that and we get to see how they change. But I also love that we get to see the flaws in them, especially in the beginning of the movie. We get to see that Marty's dad is a peeping Tom. I thought that was insanely funny.
Yes.
Uh we got to see that Lorraine took his how did his pants get off? That shouldn't have happened. Um
Yeah. Oh,
um I love that Marty gets to see these different sides to his parents because he thought that he's like his parents had like these massive sticks up their butts, but they were really just like they were teens too. And I think that was important for him to see in order to get to know his parents better.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The idea of thinking he understands who they are and then going back in time and going, oh, maybe they're not. Yes, it is absolutely hilarious in a weird way that George is a bit of a peeping Tom.
So funny.
But it's hilarious that we hear from Lorraine's dad that apparently this is not the first time that a kid has been hit by a car watching Lorraine through the window.
That's what I'm curious of a little bit more.
Yeah, so it seems like she had a habit of changing clothes in the window. Which is weird enough in its own. I mean, so I think immediately you get the sense that these people are maybe not who you thought they were. Which makes it awkward and wonderful all at the same time. Kayleigh, your thoughts on these two characters and what we get to see with them?
I think they were well cast. I will say this. I mean, some of the flaws of the movie, going back and realizing stuff as an adult versus as when I watched it when I was younger,
Yeah.
is, especially when they're themselves like in 1985, but at the beginning in 1985 instead of the alternate 1985. It just, to me, was like very stereotypical. Like Lorraine is the unhappy housewife who's just at this point become an alcoholic, and and you know George is just such a shell of a man. I mean, to me, it was like, oh, like, look at these people, been beat down by life. They don't give a crap about their kids. They don't really care. I mean, it was, it was a little, like, I think too much in a way. Like, I feel like it was, so, like, I did appreciate they did have an evolution of, like, okay, so, like, he got more confidence because of how things unfolded in the new timeline. And so, therefore, he's a different person. And I guess that does impact like how they all relate to each other and stuff like that. So I mean, I do like appreciate that, but I thought it was like a little too much at the beginning. I will say this about the teenage version. This is not really so much about their characters, but I found very like interesting, and I guess it never really dawned on me as a kid because I just wasn't watching it through those eyes. But the fact that like Lorraine clearly is like the oldest sibling, but she's got like siblings, like her mom is pregnant and she's like a teenager. I'm like, goodness gracious, this woman didn't catch a break. She's like having kids like probably well into her 40s. And I'm just like, that's just a crazy, like, I think commentary on like what life was like in the 50s versus like in the 80s, that you just don't really, if you didn't pay attention, you probably would have missed it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I just thought that was very interesting. But yeah, so I mean, I thought they were well cast. I like Leah Thompson. I like Crispin Glover. I think Crispin Glover plays the nerdy, weird peeping Tom character really well.
Yeah.
Uh, I've always been a Leah Thompson fan. I loved Carolina City. It was one of my favorite TV shows growing up. So, like I said, big fan of her. Um, Loved her as a teenager, especially the scenes in the car where she's like smoking and drinking. I mean,
Yes.
it was hilarious, hilarious.
Yeah, very, very awkward moments there in the car. Great stuff. And Marty handles it as well as anyone possibly can. Chris, your thoughts on Lorraine and George?
I don't think we would, any of us would expect our parents to be so different from where they are now or where we see them, especially in the teenage years. Like,
Hmm.
I see my parents, I can't imagine, I don't deny it, but I can't imagine my parents being, any different than they were when I was 17. Just, I can't imagine it. So the fact that they play this so well and so off character, that Lorraine is a hormonal, handsy teenager. She is,
Yeah.
which explains why the pants came off. Is what it is. Creepy kid. Um, and as for his
Trying her hope
dad,
test.
I don't know. It might just be Crispin Glover, but everything that man does is creepy.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's creepy. He has creepy vibes. He's got creepy
He's
vibes.
creepy Thin Man in the Charlie's Angels movies. Um, he is awkward and weird, and I don't hate him, but I don't. I every moment with him is like, come on, man. Come on, man. Like, seriously? Seriously? Although, it again, in the end, when he punches Biff, and then in the dance, takes Lorraine back and kisses her, like, that was cool to see that level of confidence and to see them in the changed ending, loving each other and having fun. And that's great. That's wonderful. Otherwise, I can't stand that man. That man is a coward. That man is, and he's supposed to be, but it's cringy. It's
Yeah,
awkward.
it
And
is.
it makes me wonder how you have 3 children and none of them turn out like you at all. Their 3 children are nothing like their mother and father, so we see. Crazy. Like I can't imagine it. So I love Lorraine. I love how well we see those differences. But George is cringy. And I will be honest, in the second film, I was kind of happy they replaced him.
It's a whole nother long story.
That's
right
a whole
there,
other thing. We'll talk about Back to the Future 2 one day. But yeah, I'm going to be honest. He is probably my least favorite part of this. He's not terrible by any means. It's just creepy and cringy that to think that she was married to him for, again, let's assume they married right during college. I don't know, so for near 30 years, you've never seen that side of your husband at all? Is he really that way? I mean, this is a guy willing to climb a tree and peeping Tom. You'd think he'd have a little bit more gumption in him somewhere, and he doesn't. And it's awkward and weird and creepy.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I definitely understand that. I think that really what brings people back to these movies again and again is Marty and Doc.
Yes. Yes.
That's the heart of this. That's the relationship that's really at the heart of this story.
And the other supporting cast we have to mention
Oh,
quickly.
yes. Yes.
Of course, our villain
Yes.
Biff.
Yes. I mean, they often say a movie's only as good as its villain.
I
Whether or
absolutely
not that's true, I don't know, but Biff definitely is an iconic character.
I love Thomas Wilson. Thomas Wilson is nothing like his character.
Yes.
In any way, he's actually one of the nicest men ever. Go to YouTube, look up Thomas Wilson, the song.
Yes.
I love it. I listen to it over. It makes me laugh. But he's so great. And all of his repetitions and different iterations of Biff and the Tannen family are so good. He is the villain you want to hate, and I adore it.
Yeah.
And then Principal Strickland.
Yes, James
Or Vice
Tolkien.
Principal Strickland.
James Tolkien.
Yes, James Tolkien. I love him. And anytime I hear the word slacker, I hear it in his voice.
Yeah, you're a slacker, McFly.
Yes. Yes. Our good friend Ryan Permison actually went to a convention recently and got to meet him. And it was
so awesome.
Yes.
Well,
And the car. Is the car a character too?
Yes, the DeLorean might be the most famous character from this film.
Mhm.
Now, Biff, I mean, let's call a spade a spade. He's a creepy.
He's a villain.
He's behaving in a way that is completely inappropriate by modern standards.
He is the standard high school bully, exactly down to a T. There is nothing redeeming about Biff. That might be one of his flaws, but this is a comedy in the end. This is a science fiction comedy. So maybe we don't need that. But other than that, he plays the evil villain so well.
And, in the modern world that we live in, when George punches him out for messing with Lorraine, not only are we happy just because, hey, the bully got punched, but also we're happy because a rather sexual harassment-prone fellow got what he deserved. It makes us feel good that he got what he deserved.
And the fact that they were in that parking lot, that he was trying to do that, and there was no administration, no police, nothing. That is crazy to me because today, at a school event, any school event, we live a mile down the road from my daughter's school. You go to a football game, Kira, how many sheriffs and Atwater police are at that event?
So fun fact, significantly more than there used to be, because my freshman year, somebody almost got stabbed in the parking lot. So there's significantly more than there probably should be at any given moment.
So here's my point. I know it's 1955, but there's not a cop. There's not a teacher. Nobody was going to stop and say anything.
Nope.
That's crazy to me.
Thank
No,
goodness for George.
that's what 1955 was like. So
Thank goodness for George not backing down.
yeah.
Yeah, this is a great cast. It really is. Wonderful actors, and many of whom are familiar faces that you see them pop up in other things. And you're like, hey,
Mhm.
hey, that person's from Back to the Future. That's kind of the immediate thought that comes to your mind. The one thing we do have to absolutely talk about is the musical score. Alan Silvestri has written one of the most iconic movie scores in history. A theme that everyone knows, even if they haven't seen this film all the way through. They know it. Um, Not only do we have Alan Silvestri's incredible music, but we also get The Power of Love by Huey Lewis and the News.
Mhm. And
A
Back in
song
Time.
that was
And
nominated
that's
for Best Original Song in the Oscars, by the way.
Mhm.
And then, of course, Johnny B. Good, the old Chuck Berry classic. Well, Kayleigh, your thoughts on the music, not just the musical score, but also the musical choices here.
Music is such a vital part of this movie. It really is, I think, what sets the tone. I think what's amazing to me is, clearly Hill Valley and a lot of like especially the town scenes, it's filmed on a back lot. We know this. It looks like a movie set in a
Yeah,
lot of ways.
I've seen the backlot on the Universal Studios tour.
Mhm.
Yeah, and like so you see that and you know that that's a very iconic place, and you see it in the 80s and you see it in the 50s, and so like music is what transports you in a lot of ways. Yes, it's the scenery, you know that it looked different in the 50s, it looks run down in the 80s, but like to me like that is what sets the tone. And what's amazing about it, because this film was done in the 80s has a very specific sound and the 50s had a very specific sound, and you
Yes.
get that in both of the you get something like Huey Lewis and the News were so big at that time. It's an iconic. It's like you think like I mean just the fact that Huey Lewis is actually in the movie, he gets a
Yes.
cameo,
Yes. Can you
and
guys
it's
do it
like
quieter?
it's so iconic. It's so like, just it to me, it's like that is one band when I think about the 80s, I think about them. And so that you have that, and then you have like the music with Chuck Berry in the 50s, and just like the music they played at the dance. Like to me, that is what sets the tone. And so like especially even with the score, you have all the stuff around the big moments that is like the iconic Back to the Future score, but you also have this really nice moments where the score really does put you in the place where you're supposed to be time period wise. And so I think that that is a very effective tool. And it does what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, exactly. As soon as you hear Mr. Sandman, you know you're in the 50s.
Dun 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 dun
Which is
dun
great,
dun.
because you're right. It absolutely transports you to what time period you're in. And of course, when you get the car going and you get Alan Silvestri's score going, I mean, it's like, look, to me, it's goosebumps. It just brings the goosebumps. It's like, oh, this is so awesome. Uh, Kara, your thoughts on musical choices in this film?
I don't think you could do a movie that's like a specific time period or so time period heavy without talking about or doing very like time specific music. Like you can't
Mm-hmm.
do timeless stuff. It has to be specific, especially for the 50s and the 80s. Because if you look back into like this is gonna be a crazy sentence, into like the 1900s, going from like 1900 to 1990, the music changes so much, and it completely sets you where you are. Um, because you go to 1955 and it's so different from 1985. And I love how like you don't even have to look around. You can hear it.
Absolutely. Just the sound alone of the music is enough to tell you where you are and when you are, which is really cool. Chris, your thoughts?
While okay, I love the score. Yes, That score, dun, 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 da, 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 da. To me, that is as iconic as Indiana Jones, as iconic as Star Wars, as iconic as so many riffs that I'm like, yes, I'm ready. Let's go. The use of music in here in the 1950s, I'm sorry, is a little sketchy. So the version of the Ballad of Davy Crockett they use is not in the right year. I go a little nuts about this. Earth Angel was right, but Johnny Be Good, the whole Marvin Berry, he didn't have a cousin named Marvin. What? There are little things in it that I go, I get it. I know why you threw it in there. I know why it's there. You wanted to evoke the emotional feel of the 1950s, and that's where Kira's right. But for me, when I sit there and if you're going to do a time travel period piece, which Back to the Future still is, it is a time travel period piece. You need to get those little details right. Music is one of them, and you've got to get it right. While I enjoy those performances, and by the way, this performance of Johnny Be Good is my all-time favorite version of Johnny Be Good. Love this song. But it's not quite the way that you would expect it to go. And just little things. There are little things. However, I do love the music. The Power of Love is a great theme song, and Back in Time, dun 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 da da, like it's all the 80s stuff that you hear is really fabulous. So, there are little nitpicky things. Do they really hurt the film? No, I like music history. I love the 1950s, and I was like, come on, guys, you do a little better than that. But it does a good job at evoking the feel. And if I had to pick between an accurate movie that doesn't make me feel and an inaccurate movie that definitely makes me feel, I'll take the latter.
Yeah, well said. I mean, yes, the music here is iconic. It really is. And I know that we use that word a lot with this film, but it really is true. This is an iconic film. The last thing that I'll just cover really quick is the spectacle. This is not a heavy on visual effects film. Um, I like that it uses the visual effects sparingly in this story and doesn't overdo it, and I think that works to its advantage. The This is just a very well made film. It's very well edited. It's very well constructed. It doesn't feel rushed. It feels like it's got good pacing. And it just feels like the relationships between these characters, particularly Doc and Marty, it's one of the great movie relationships of all time. And I think that the chemistry that all the actors have here is just magnificent. And basically, all of these things all added together is why this movie is one of the most iconic films, arguably of all time, I would say. And definitely one of the highlights of the 1980s, which, in my opinion, might be the best decade for science fiction. That brings us to the end of our discussion of Back to the Future, so I turn the con back to Captain Ingle.
Thank you so much. You say how iconic this is. I definitely think this is easily top 10 one of the greatest trilogies of all time. Without question. I would go back to the Back to the Future trilogy as much as I would go back to the Godfather trilogy. Some people would think that's blasphemous, but you know what?
I agree with you, Ingle.
And
I will say this one thing. I will say this one thing. After watching this one, I realized I watched part 2 and part 3 way more as a kid than I watched the first one.
Yes, I watched part 3 more than this, yes.
I didn't see Back to the Future 1 until much later in life.
Same here.
I call it the Ghostbuster syndrome because I saw Ghostbusters 2 way more times than I ever saw one. So I had no idea how adult it was. And this is the same way, because Back to the Future 2 and 3 is very clean. It's very PG. This is very 1980s PG.
Oh boy.
So much so.
For sure.
Oh yeah. So I really enjoyed this, and I'm glad we got to talk about it. I love it. And you know what? If you are somebody who wants more Back to the Future, I recommend there are comic books. There's an animated series. I also recommend Back to the Future, the video game. Not the original NES version, but the Telltale Touch version that was released on like the Wii, the Xbox. If you can find it on PC, do it. It essentially is Back to the Future 4 done right. And it was written heavily with Zemeckis and Gale's help. So if you're a fan and you want more, play Back to the Future, the video game. You won't be disappointed. All right. Well, we have two guests I have to thank. Kayleigh, thank you so much for joining us for Back to the Future and what have you. And you got anything to plug? Museums, perhaps, that might deserve plugging?
I got a new one now.
You're in a new one?
Yeah, well, it's not new for me. I'm not commuting anymore, so I'm now the director of the Orangeburg County Fine Arts Center. So,
Nice.
Hey, Kayleigh, I might need a job.
I don't have a job to give you. I'm the only employee right now.
Over the country? Okay.
I'll clean the toilets. Anyway. Awesome. Kira, I know you're only 17. What do you got coming up?
More work. My high school. That's it.
My daughter, I will say this in code and she'll understand. My daughter knows many Disney princesses.
Hire them for your birthday parties. Classic princess parties, guys.
Classic. Yes, if you're in the area. My daughter spends time with Disney princesses on the weekends now.
It's good. It's good.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. All right. Well, next week we go back to the original series. We are taking a look at a Halloween episode, Cat's Paw.
Only 3 months off. Only 3 months off.
It's fine. It's fine. Next month's movie, though, I'm really excited for this. I specifically chose this. It is a movie that got a lot of hate. A lot of people don't love it. I adore this movie, and I love the books that this is based on. Next month, we take a look at John Carter. I like this movie. I don't get where the hate is from. I just don't. So I'm looking forward to watching it.
Right now. I'm reading them right now.
Huh? Are you reading it?
Yep. The Barsoom trilogy. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Isn't it Edgar Rice Burroughs? Is it Burroughs?
It is. It's Edgar Rice Burroughs.
Same guy that wrote the Tarzan novels. So we'll get into that in a month, but I really, really, really enjoyed these.
Yes.
All right. Brennan, where can the people find you?
You can find me on Blue Sky at brennard@bluesky.social. You can also find me on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify at Page Turners They Were Not.
And you can find me on Twitch and Twitter at CIngle1984. But as always, we end every episode, Kapla! Live long and prosper.
Peace and long lives.